So I was thinking after the whole, you know, PlayStation 5 Pro $700 price point, that whole debacle, I started thinking about the fact that we're in a really weird space with like the core console market or the high fidelity, high performing console market. Not sure if high performing is the right term, but you get what I'm saying. Like the cutting edge technology in the console market, it feels like we are at a weird spot where like I don't think this generation has been god awful, but I do think the generation has been pretty bad from both Xbox and PlayStation. Like I think this is a generation that is very much being carried by the third party publishers and developers. And I'm talking specifically from the standpoint of a game player, a game enjoyer. I know if you want to look at financials, you can say, well, damn, PlayStation's crushing it. They're about to have their most profitable generation ever. I remember at some point last year, it was reported that they were outselling Xbox 5-1. But I think that all kind of circles back to what we're talking about here with the fact that the lack of competition, that's whenever you have these crazy price hikes. That's whenever you have PlayStation increasing the price randomly of controllers and increasing the price of the base console in different countries. And then the absolute price hike that I can say for myself personally, I never would have expected at the $700 price point for the PS5 Pro. And then like in Europe in different regions, it's even more egregiously priced because there's even less competition in those regions. And then you have, the lack of first party single player output, the double and tripling down on live service games, which, to be fair, they're kind of walking that back a little bit. But I just wonder if there was more competition, would the live service push have taken place at all? Would that have been a real focus of PlayStation's, ninth generation push at all? Like, could they afford to take that risk if it was neck and neck like the 360 PS3 generation? But despite all of that, we're still in a really weird spot where it's like Sony can pull off all of these pretty anti-consumer moves consecutively, and then the question is to the console gamers out there, where else are you going to go? You going to go to Xbox? Why? If you've already bought a PlayStation and you know you're going to get those games too, why would you make that transition? So it's a weird position for PlayStation to be in right now where it feels like they can kind of do almost anything and get away with it to some extent. And so that got me thinking, and this is what I want to ask you guys, would you all be open to somebody else entering the core console market? Like, what would it take for a new company to break into the console market to be appealing enough for you to go, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna take the risk on this new thing? And so as I was sitting there thinking about which companies could even make a play to break into the console space, because that's the tough thing. It's a very costly endeavor where you are going to lose a lot of money up front to make more money in the long term. And so I was trying to sit there and think about interesting different companies who could potentially make a move to break into the console space. So I'm going to list those out to y'all. You let me know if I'm crazy or not. So the first one that immediately jumped out to me was Meta. And I got to say, I'm kind of impressed with what Meta is doing, especially in terms of realizing the importance of exclusive software. Like, they're doing a really good job with that, especially for the VR space. They have that Batman Arkham Shadows game coming out later in the year. They had that Asgard's Wrath game that came out last year that reviewed incredibly well. They have stuff like Assassin's Creed Nexus, and all of these games, all three of those games I just listed off there, they're all exclusive to Meta VR devices. And I don't know, they just seem to be making big plays, picking good partners, and focusing on creating good products, good games for that VR headset. And once again, talking about a company with a ton of cash to burn, Meta is definitely a company with a ton of cash to burn. So that was the first one that popped out to me just because of how well they're doing in the VR space right now. And I know that's a much more niche hardware business to be involved in. So I'm like, if you're going to get into the VR space, which I understand the advancements in technology, that's probably the appealing draw for VR for Meta. But it's like, if you're dabbling with VR, might as well just jump into the core console space. And then of course, I start thinking about Google with Stadia, and I start thinking about all of the things that went wrong that were seemingly pretty avoidable. The fact that you based your entire console around streaming and not having the ability to access these games natively, like buying games for a console that you can never actually own, that you can never actually download and play. That is batshit crazy. And I understand the future is in streaming, yada, 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 all that shit that people want to say, but I mean, I think still right now we're a good decade away from that being any sort of predominant way that people play games. But when Stadia launched, what was that, 2019 or so? I mean, that infrastructure was nowhere near ready at that time. And it's the crazy thing where, despite all of that, they were making some intelligent plays. Baldur's Gate 3 was revealed for Stadia. I don't remember if it was an exclusive for Stadia or if they had like exclusive features that were only accessible through Stadia, but there was some Baldur's Gate 3 ties to Stadia. Cyberpunk 2077 somehow ran better on Stadia than any other console. It's just really interesting to think about a reality where Stadia launches, Cyberpunk plays best on Stadia. You can actually purchase it, download it, play the best version of Cyberpunk, and then a couple years later, the next big RPG comes out with Baldur's Gate 3, and it's exclusive to Stadia. And of course, you would have to fill that lineup with more exclusive software, and obviously everything would have to be accessible through, downloading the game, owning the game, being able to play the game offline, or at the very least not, tied to streaming through, not forcing you to only play the game through streaming. I just feel like across the board, Google shot themselves in the foot with Stadia. Like, that thing, I think, actually could have taken off and been something pretty big. Speaking of things that could have taken off and been pretty big, I wonder if Steam ever has plans to enter back into the console space. I remember they had that Steam machine, was that 10 years ago or so, and of course it was a total disaster. It launched at like $1,000 10 years ago, which holy smokes, I wouldn't want to see the price point on that today. And once again, I've talked about this in the past, but in the console market, the goal has always been, and I assume, or I would hope will always be, to get people into your ecosystem by taking a loss on the hardware to sell the software, which I understand is a little bit tougher for Valve because they don't make as much software. They don't release as many video games as like an Xbox or a PlayStation or whatever. So you're relying a lot more on those 30% rips across the board. But man, the idea of a Steam Deck and a Steam machine that is, more powerful, not portable, where you can access your full Steam library, that's appealing to me, to have both options, but to be separate, to not just be like, okay, well, you can go and dock this thing, but to have like a very specific console version where it is the most powerful option, at least comparable to your PlayStation and Xbox counterparts, but then also having that market filled for the handheld enthusiasts, the people who want to go and buy the handhelds. And I mean, just imagine a world where the Steam Machine 2, or I guess they could still call it the Steam Machine. Imagine a world where the Steam Machine launches with Half-Life 3. Launch title, day one, Half-Life 3, only accessible through the Steam Machine. And I remember the console looking so damn cool. I loved the look of the console. The controller was so weird. I'll include some B-roll so you can see what I'm talking about. It was a very unique looking system. And yeah, I don't know. I do kind of hope that Steam makes a play in the console space at some point. And you can argue that the Steam Deck is pretty much already doing that, but a dedicated console device I think would be cool. And actually, I remember hearing Dustin Furman from Sacred Symbols making a case for why the Steam Machine or a new Steam console would make a lot of sense. So to be fair, I'm technically stealing this idea from him, but even if it is more so just kind of taking the Xbox approach and being like, okay, hey, It's a third-party device, and every now and then you'll get a Valve exclusive title. Do I think that would necessarily be like a big competitor if that is what was being offered up? Like just another third-party box with a couple exclusives here and there throughout a generation? Obviously not, but yeah, I don't know. I do think people would love to have to be able to access their full Steam library through a console. But who I'm personally the most interested in would have to be either Apple or Amazon. Mainly because we know they would be aggressive as fuck. They would be making big moves, big plays for exclusives. Obviously, both companies already have interest and are already invested in gaming. We know that Amazon is funding the next Tomb Raider game. They launched that New World MMO that people seem to enjoy, at least to some degree. And also, Amazon seems to be pretty understanding that you're gonna have to eat a loss here and there in the short term to make up for it in the long term. And once again, you have to have that mindset going into the console business. And then, of course, Apple has investment in Apple Arcade, and they've tried other various investments in the game space that haven't panned out as well. But I think if you launch something like a box called iPlay, or some shit with that branding on it, that Apple branding on it, and you made it feel premium like your other content, like your other phones and tablets and MacBooks and all this and that, I do think you could possibly break into that mass market appeal pretty quickly, maybe even quicker than any other company, just due to brand recognition, just due to people being like, well, if it's Apple, it'll probably be decent. It'll probably be a pretty high quality bar that they're trying to strive for. So yeah, either of those options are the most interesting to me personally, because I just think they would make some pretty big, pretty aggressive. Meta's up there for me as well. I think all three of those would make some pretty some pretty big plays in the console space. Now, the next one that I'm going to talk about is definitely less so. This is just a weird idea that hit my brain that I want to share with you all. Embracer. So obviously it's far too late for this to take place now, but in terms of having the developers and publishers in place to make a huge move like this, you could kind of say Embracer is better positioned for a console than any of the core console makers already. Like, just in terms of volume, just in terms of quantity, if you were willing to lose a ton of money up front, and if you were committed to keeping all of your publishers and developers, all of their content exclusive to this platform, because I mean, you're talking about so many teams. You're talking about Warhorse Studios, the guys that make Kingdom Come Deliverance. You're talking about THQ Nordic and all the subsidiaries under THQ Nordic. You're talking about Aspyr. You're talking about Saber Interactive. You're talking about Eidos Montreal, Crystal Dynamics. I mean, you could realistically paint out a scenario where, you know, we just talked about the Amazon Tomb Raider game, but we're going to talk about it again, obviously owned by Crystal Dynamics. You could paint out a situation where Tomb Raider is a launch title for that console, as is a Deus Ex remake, as is, I don't know, we'll say Kingdom Come Deliverance 3, Tarsier, you know, the creators of Little Nightmares. You could have them crank out a new IP, a bigger budget new IP that's exclusive to this Embracer box. You could have, you know, you got the Lord of the Rings IP, so some new Shadow of War style game that's exclusive to this box. And if you have all of these heavy hitters as a launch window lineup of exclusive games, exclusive new games, I mean, you're talking about making some serious noise. Once again, you're going to have to eat a real loss at the beginning there, but you're talking about making some serious noise, man. Have Aspyr work on a Legacy of Kain remake. Get Flying Wild Hog to throw in a new IP, or you know, if you want to play to my heart and make me buy the damn Embracer box day one, crank out that damn Evil West 2. I'll be paying for the damn console just for Evil West 2 alone. Hell, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe the move is if Apple or an Amazon or a Meta wants to get into the console space, because Embracer's kind of imploding at this point. Just buy that damn thing on a fire sale. Try to buy the entirety of it. And if you're an Apple or an Amazon and you're in the position, you're better suited for that position to eat the loss at the beginning phase of your console, then hey, you got a shit ton of teams under your belt who can make exclusive content for your system. So that's really all I had jotted down, man. That's just a weird scenario that I ran through in my brain. I'm sure you can pick holes in all of my arguments here, all of my scenarios that I'm trying to paint here. But I just think it's fun to think about a future where there is a little bit more competition on in the core console space, because I mean, realistically, what I would like to see more than anything is just a legit Xbox comeback. I would love to see them announce that next console for, 2026 or whatever the speculation is right now. Let's just say 2026, and say we're looking at a launch window lineup of like Gears of War E-Day and Perfect Dark and South of Midnight and Clockwork Revolution. And you could probably even throw Fable in there, because I don't believe that's going to launch in 2025. But come out with that heavy hitter launch window lineup of exclusive games, and also have a position, have a firm stance in this new age of exclusivity. If you want to say, okay, hey, all ABK games are going day and date to other platforms, but have a position of, all our first-party Xbox Game Studios games that we're building, those are going to remain exclusive to Xbox. We want to be committed to this system, to this next generation. As PlayStation is waffling a little bit, as they're kind of flailing, trying to figure out a live service plan, trying to figure out this and that, jacking up prices on their player base. Like, try to have a firm stance of being like, hey, we are actually a legitimate, option for people who are looking for an alternative in the console space. And actually, my homie Loon and I have a video, actually 2 videos upcoming, talking about things we would do to fix Xbox, things we would do to fix PlayStation. Not fix, maybe isn't the right word, but 10 moves we would make if we were a Phil Spencer like, or a Herman Hulst like. If we had access, we could wave a magic wand and make moves within those companies. 10 things we would do. So definitely will, I don't know if this video will be coming out before or after that. I'm working on editing those as well right now, but yeah, we'll definitely get more into that stuff. Both of those are, close to hour-long videos where we're really get in the weeds, get in the nitty-gritty, and discuss all that shit a little bit more in depth. But yeah, man, that's pretty much it for today's video. Just started thinking about all that shit, and started thinking about different people who could, or different companies who could make plays in the console space. And I was like, as I'm experimenting with these shorter videos, smaller videos, I think this is something that I can throw out there and see if you all have any thoughts on it. And you can hit me in the comments below with your thoughts on all of this good shit. And yeah, man, that's it for me. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. I shall see you good people in the next video. Goodbye.